We got married. Mom, can you leave the house? Key under the mat. I played it again just to be sure I hadn't misheard. The message was 32 seconds long, cheerful, brief, no pause, no apology, just Connor's voice, light and careless, like he was asking me to water a plant while they were away. The kitchen felt smaller with that message echoing in it. I stood barefoot on the tile, the smell of chamomile still faint from the tea I'd made and forgotten. The sun hadn't even reached the windows yet. Everything around me was quiet, still soaked in the gentleness of morning, except me. The phone screen dimmed in my hand. I tapped it back to life, but didn't play the message again. Not yet. No mention of a wedding beforehand. No, we're planning something special. No, I want you there. Just, we got married, like an afterthought, like someone telling you they've painted over a wall you built, and now they want the key to the room. I walked to the sink and looked out across the bluff. The ocean was calm today, brushed in pale gray and glass blue. The same view Connor grew up with. He used to sit on the counter while I made pancakes shaped like film reels, jabbering about the short movies he wanted to make when he was older. That boy had layers to his voice, questions in his eyes. This voice, this version of him, sounded finished, smoothed over. I set the phone down on the table and reached into the bottom drawer of the sideboard, the one with the metal catch that always stuck. Inside was a slim folder labeled simply, Property. The corners were worn, but the seal on the trust inside was untouched. My hands didn't shake as I slid it out. Not yet. There would be time to cry, maybe, but not before I found out who she was. This woman who married my son, wore the ring, and still wanted my house. I waited until early evening to call him. I needed the day to settle, to not sound like I'd spent the last 5 hours sitting at the kitchen table listening to 32 seconds of detachment on repeat. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom!" The speakerphone clicked on. I could hear voices, hers mostly, laughing. Ice in a glass, a door closing. "You're on speaker," he said, like it was a courtesy. "I heard your message." "Yeah," he said. "Crazy, right? Wedding was amazing, really intimate, just a few people." "I see," I replied. Scarlett's voice floated in. "Hi, Melva. The pictures turned out so good. I'll send you some when we get back." There was a pause. Then Connor's tone shifted. Too light. "So, about the key, could you just leave it under the mat?" I stayed quiet. "Mom, I was thinking maybe you two could come for dinner first," I said carefully. "We haven't spoken in weeks. It might be nice to catch up." Scarlett answered before he could. "We'd love to, really, but we're just exhausted. The flight was delayed and we have another early one tomorrow. Just the key would be perfect." "It's just a house, Mom," Connor added, as if that settled it. "You're barely using it." The words landed harder than I expected. Just a house. Just the place I planted rosemary in after his father died. Just the wall where his height was measured year by year. Just the living room where he practiced his wedding vows at 8 years old, with a paper crown and a dog for a bride. "Okay," I said, and nothing more. We said our goodbyes. I placed the phone down slowly. Then I walked to my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out the file I hadn't touched in over a decade. Its contents had waited patiently. Quiet pages, signatures, old ink. The kind of history that doesn't ask for attention until it's needed. I smoothed the cover and carried it with me to the kitchen, where the kettle had already begun to boil. On Monday, I stopped by the nursery to buy fresh soil for the planters near the back gate. Mrs. Elkins, my neighbor 2 doors down, spotted me by the succulents. She waved, then leaned in with a conspiratorial grin. "I saw the delivery trucks last Thursday. Roses, orchids, even white hydrangeas. I told my husband it had to be a wedding. Wasn't that exciting?" I managed a small smile. She kept going, pleased to be in the loop. "The staff looked fancy too, caterers in black aprons, and the tent they set up, goodness, it almost touched our fence." I nodded like I already knew, like I hadn't just found out via voicemail 3 days after the fact. Later at the grocer's, Helen stopped me near the cheese counter. She looked flushed and cheerful, holding a list and a tray of almond tarts. "Oh, Melva, I forgot to text you. I helped bake for Connor's rehearsal dinner. Scarlett's aunt ordered everything but didn't trust the frosting. Can you imagine? I thought you were out of town or I would have stopped by." I told her it was a last-minute trip. She didn't question it. Why would she? It turned out I hadn't been left out quietly. I'd been erased, gently explained away, made into something vague and noble. Traveling for clarity, Connor had said to people. It sounded like something a yoga instructor would put on a retreat poster. That night, I took a drive along the coast road. The wind through the open window tangled my hair, and the sky faded from coral to ash. I didn't cry, but I did speak aloud, just once, when the wind was loud enough to carry the words away. Connor never learned the weight of things, I said softly, only how to carry them lightly. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine I didn't finish and opened the folder again. Inside, tucked between tax filings and survey maps, was a name I hadn't heard in years, printed on a sealed envelope I'd never opened. The envelope turned out to be a letter from an old colleague, Leonard Gaines, a production manager I'd worked with in the early 90s. Back then, Leonard had a knack for knowing everyone's business before the tabloids did. When he retired, he'd gone into what he called reputation consulting, a polite term for quiet investigations. I still had his number scribbled in the back of an address book, the paper yellowed but legible. I called him that afternoon. He didn't ask why I needed information on someone named Scarlett Moore. He just said, "Give me 48 hours." It took less than 24. When he called back, I was sitting in the garden, clipping the dry ends off the lavender. His voice came through the phone, low and certain. "Her name's not Scarlett. It's Sarah Milan. Changed it 3 years ago. Before that, she was Sarah Lennon. Before that, Sarah Hanley. All legal, all documented." I didn't say anything. "There's more," he continued. "2 civil suits, one settled, one sealed, and a joint account frozen in 2019 with a man named Eric Wells, real estate content creator, minor influencer, went bankrupt." The wind rustled through the garden. I could almost hear Leonard flipping through pages on his end of the call. "She's good at reinvention. Kept 3 active Instagram handles at once. Different faces, same person. Lifestyle coach, real estate advisor, property flipper. She uses whatever gets her through the door." I thanked him quietly, promising payment that he waved off. "You were always the only one on set who remembered birthdays," he said before hanging up. I stayed in the garden a long time after that. The ocean air was sharp with salt, and the fading light turned the windows of the house into mirrors. Inside, I started a new folder labeled Scarlett Moore, Personal. I printed everything Leonard had sent and slid it inside. Then I wrote a note in my neat, slanted handwriting and stuck it to the front. "Trust no surface that's been repainted." The printer still hummed when another email arrived. Its subject line, "Development Proposal, Malibu Property Inquiry." The email wasn't subtle. Subject line, "Oceanfront Opportunity. Post-honeymoon possession possible. Sent from an address tied to a media consulting firm I didn't recognize but signed plainly enough, Scarlett M." Connor's email was CC'd. She had written to 3 developers, attaching photos of my living room, my kitchen, my husband's old workbench by the garage. Her language was polished, confident. She described the house as ripe for transformation, noting its iconic placement and untapped luxury potential. The words caught in my throat like smoke. Ripe, untapped, like the house had been asleep, waiting for someone more deserving to wake it up. She had scheduled the first walkthrough for the Tuesday after their planned departure. There was no mention of me, no suggestion I existed, just timelines, zoning questions, and the word transition over and over again. A transition property, a stepping stone toward a larger portfolio. I sat at the kitchen table for a long while. Then I reached again for the file cabinet, but this time I didn't go to the past. I went to the folder marked Future. The trust paperwork was already halfway done, drafted years ago, but never finalized. I called my attorney, who answered on the first ring. "Finish it," I said. "Place the house in a generational trust. My name stays on it, but upon my passing, it belongs to Nora and June, my granddaughters." "Not Connor?" he asked. "Not Connor," I replied. It was done by the end of the day. I signed the documents on the same desk where I once balanced a baby bottle in one hand and a sketch pad in the other. That evening, I opened a new manila folder. I labeled it simply, "Welcome." Inside, I placed the trust documents, the name change records, the printed emails, and a USB. The footage on the drive was quietly edited. No voiceover, just facts on screen. Dates, names, patterns. The pieces were all in place. I poured a cup of tea, sat by the front window, and left the porch light on. They were arriving tomorrow. They arrived mid-afternoon, exactly as Connor had texted. The car pulled into the drive with a soft crunch of gravel, the trunk popping open before the engine even stopped. I watched from the upstairs landing, just far enough back that they couldn't see me through the front window. I didn't plan to greet them. I didn't need to. Their laughter echoed briefly as they entered the front door. Suitcases bumped against the frame, and shoes clacked across the floor. It was casual, rehearsed, like they were stepping into a rental booked months in advance. Then the sound shifted. A pause. Footsteps slowed. I imagined Connor seeing the manila folder on the coffee table, the one I had labeled simply "Welcome." I had left it centered and uncovered, the envelope flap tucked in, not sealed. On top of the papers sat a single note in blue ink. "You should know who you married." There was no speaking for several seconds. Then the soft rustle of pages turning. I knew the order by heart: the name change records, the court notice, the frozen account. Then the printed email chain with developers, dates, and timestamps intact. At the bottom, the USB drive, clear casing, labeled with a strip of tape. "Should we play it?" Connor asked aloud, though I wasn't sure if he was asking her or himself. He did. The television lit up in silence. I had left the montage unscored, just visuals, a slow glide through faces, contracts, social media clips. A clipped voice message played over text. "Once the honeymoon ends, I want that place flipped fast." Scarlett didn't say anything at first, just stood watching. Then her body jerked back like she'd been struck. A gasp. Color drained from her face, then returned in an angry, deep red. Her mouth opened wide, and then she screamed. The sound tore through the house, high, piercing, panicked. She grabbed a pillow off the couch and hurled it across the room, sending a lamp crashing to the floor. Connor said nothing. Minutes later, the front door opened again. Their suitcases didn't go upstairs, and the porch light clicked off behind them. They didn't leave immediately. I watched them sit in the car for a long while, neither moving, neither speaking. The front seats were still, except for the slow, rhythmic blink of the hazard lights. A gull called somewhere overhead, sharp and out of place against the heavy silence. From my upstairs window, I could see Scarlett in profile, rigid, jaw clenched. Connor stared ahead, hands fixed on the steering wheel, like he couldn't remember how to let go. When the car finally rolled forward, it was slow, deliberate. But halfway down the drive, just before the curve out to the road, something shifted. The brake lights flared red. Even with the windows up, I could imagine the argument brewing in that small, trapped space. Words with edges, accusations that didn't need volume to cut. Then movement. Scarlett twisted in her seat, reached into the back. She'd brought the vase herself, crystal, heavy, filled with a small bouquet of pale flowers meant for the hallway table. It had sat in the back seat untouched until now. In one violent motion, she snatched it up and launched it forward. The crash was immediate. The sound of glass exploding against plastic and vinyl, the splash of water soaking into the rental seats. The car jolted like it had been hit from the inside. Neighbors turned, curtains moved. One man across the street paused his dog mid-walk. Connor hit the gas too fast, jerking the car forward with a screech. The wheels stuttered against the edge of the driveway before they found traction. Then they were gone. By dusk, the light outside had cooled. I'd swept up the broken lamp in the living room and put the folder away. At 8:43 p.m., a text came through. "You've made your point." That was all it said. I read it once, closed the thread, and deleted the message. Then I opened my contacts list and blocked the number. Not with anger, not even relief, just a sense of stillness. Downstairs, the house had gone quiet again, as if nothing had ever broken. The first few days were quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that hangs in the air like a question waiting to be answered. No knocks on the door, no follow-up calls, no apology, just stillness. On the fourth day, I opened my laptop and checked Scarlett's public page, something I hadn't done in months. The newest photo had been posted 6 hours earlier. She sat in an airport lounge, legs crossed, makeup flawless, not a trace of the woman who had screamed in my living room. The caption read, "New beginnings, old baggage dropped." There were hearts in the comments, clapping hands, friends cheering her on. She liked everyone. I closed the browser and sat back. It didn't sting, not exactly, but it lingered, like perfume from someone who left too quickly. Later that day, I received an email from my lawyer. Scarlett, under one of her legal names, had submitted a request for legal review of the property. She claimed verbal agreements and familial assumption of inheritance. The trust structure held, the paperwork was airtight. She had no standing. It was over before it began. The next night, at 9:12 p.m., my phone lit up with a message from Connor. I stared at the screen for a moment before opening it, "She's gone." That was it. No name, no context, just 2 words that sounded more like a report than a confession. I didn't reply. Instead, I powered down the phone, walked into my bedroom, and placed it gently into the drawer beside the bed. I didn't open it again for 3 days. During that time, I watered the plants. I finished sewing a hem that had come undone on a favorite jacket. I sat on the porch in the late afternoon and watched the sea roll in and back again. No one called. No one came by. The silence didn't ask anything of me. It didn't comfort me either. It just was. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, I saw him standing at the gate. He didn't ring the bell. He didn't knock. I heard the gate creak open just enough for someone to step inside, and then it closed again. Through the front window, I saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, shoulders drawn in. Not the man who had asked for the house, but something quieter, less certain. No car behind him, no suitcase, no Scarlett. I opened the door without saying a word. He didn't meet my eyes at first. "I didn't see it all," he said, voice low like a confession. "I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. I thought I did, but I didn't." I nodded, then turned and walked back toward the kitchen. The kettle was already warm from earlier. I poured 2 mugs and carried them out to the porch. He followed. We sat, not close, not apart, just enough distance to feel safe. There was no apology, not in the way people usually offer one. No reasons, no explanations. But he spoke anyway. "I wanted the house," he said. "Not for Scarlett, not really. I think I thought if I had it, I'd finally be someone." He looked out over the water, the same view he'd grown up with, the one he used to pretend was a movie set. "I didn't even like it here when I was a teenager. Always said I'd leave and never come back." He laughed once, soft and dry. "Guess that part worked out?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The wind picked up slightly. The waves broke in the distance. We sat with our tea, letting time move between us without pressure. When he rose to leave, he didn't say goodbye, just placed his empty mug on the small table beside mine. Later, when I gathered the cups to rinse them, I found a folded piece of paper beneath his. One sentence written in his handwriting, the same I'd helped him practice when he was 10 years old. "I'm sorry for erasing you." I smoothed the note flat, held it for a moment, then placed it gently in the drawer with the others. Weeks passed without incident, without noise. No more messages, no unexpected guests. The stillness no longer pressed in. It expanded. The house exhaled, and so did I. I cleared out the guest bedroom first. The linens were stripped, washed, and folded neatly into the hallway cabinet. I replaced them with fresh sheets, simple, soft, clean, nothing monogrammed. In the kitchen, I rearranged the spice rack, wiped down the counters, and opened every window. The air that moved through the rooms was sharp with salt and faint eucalyptus. For the first time in months, maybe years, the house smelled like itself. Some mornings I woke early and walked the edge of the bluff, watching the fishermen pull their boats in just as the sun hit the water. Other days I sat by the front window with a warm mug in my hands and let the minutes pass without measuring them. There were no blinking voicemail lights, no unread texts, no expectations lingering in the corners, just the ocean, steady and indifferent, rolling forward and back. I don't think of myself as a widow anymore, or someone's mother. Those roles still exist, but they don't define the room anymore. They don't weigh down the air. I'm just the woman who still lives here, who still holds the key, who knows every creak in the floor, every shadow that moves across the wall when the afternoon light shifts. The house remains, not as a relic, not as a prize, but as a place that remembers.